What's going on, my friends? For today's watch review, let's take a look at the Tudor Chronograph. The one that I have is the all steel version, and I believe it is discontinued. So in my opinion, that makes it even more special. If you're a crazy watch fanatic like myself, then every once in a while you come across a watch that you lose sleep over, and this is definitely one of those watches for me. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's go over some general information, starting off with price. I think you can reasonably find these watches for around $3,500 to $5,000. Of course, now that this watch is officially discontinued, I think the price is only going to go up. So again, I never tried to create FOMO, but if you're in the market for this particular model, I would say now is the time to get one. For dimensions and weight, starting off with diameter, if we measure just the bezel, that comes in at 41.4 millimeters. If we include the crown, then it jumps up to 44.5 millimeters. For case thickness, that's 14.7 millimeters with a lug to lug of 50 millimeters and a lug width of 22 millimeters. The overall weight size for my wrist comes in at 192 grams or 6.7 ounces. So with that being said, it's an unavoidable fact that this is a chunkier watch. So if you're in the market for a more slimmer and lighter watch, then this probably is not the right choice for you. But taking those dimensions into consideration, how does it wear on the wrist? And I gotta tell you, I think it's perfectly fine. It's very comfortable for me. Yes, it is a little bit heftier and it's a bit more dense compared to other sports watches, but for me and my preferences, I absolutely love that. I do wear this whenever I do physical activities quite often, and taking it to the gym, I always like to test out a watch's ergonomics through pushing movements, or more specifically pressing movements, and also pulling movements. So, you know, push-ups, bench press, pull-ups, those are my litmus tests to identify any sort of hot spots for ergonomics, and there were really not any for the Chronograph. You know, it's a very comfortable watch, and I think it handles physical activities and sports perfectly fine. Now, to counter that, I will say that going to the gym is only about an hour to an hour and a half long event. So, you know, any watch is going to be fine in that time span. But over extended periods of time, so let's say you're going hiking or it's just a long, hot summer day, I will say that you will start to feel that weight and that heft on the top of your wrist. So here's some footage of me going out with a family on a hike just because it was a beautiful day, and I was rocking the Tudor Chronograph, and you know, for the most part it was perfectly fine. But after a couple of hours and it started creeping up into the high 80s, low 90s, you know, my wrist was starting to sweat, it was starting to get a little bit uncomfortable. And so again, it's me being really nitpicky. I don't think it should deter you from purchasing this watch, but it is just something that I wanted to bring up. For the engine or the movement of this chronograph, one would think that it's an in-house Tudor movement, but it's actually essentially just a Breitling movement. So Tudor and Breitling partnered up, shared some technology, and so what we're getting is the B01 Breitling chronograph movement with a little touch from Tudor. So with that, you get all of the bells and whistles that you would get from the Swiss movement and all that good stuff. But I think what's really great here is the 70-hour power reserve, which is fantastic for a regular watch and even better for a chronograph. It's such a great feeling when 3 nights go by and you put on the watch and you go to wind it up and you realize it's actually still running, and you don't need to do anything or set it because it never stopped running. Now going back to the different components of the watch, and we'll just start from top to bottom. So at the very top, you've got a sapphire crystal, and I think it's beautifully done. It's not necessarily a domed sapphire crystal, but it's very reminiscent of the retro style acrylic crystals, and I really like that look. Surrounding the sapphire crystal is a silver tone non-rotating tachymeter bezel, which of course is, in my opinion, the #1 selling point of the watch, the silver tone bezel right here. Inside the bezel, you've got your standard dive style indices and the hands, which all have applied lume on it, and it is fantastic. And then for the subdials, you've got your running second hand right here, your chronograph subdial right here, and you can see, well, I don't know if you can see it, but it only measures up to 45 minutes, which is an odd number to measure up to. You know, at least give us 60 minutes, but whatever. And then right here at the 6 o'clock position, you've got your date window, which I think looks perfectly fine right there where it is at. Moving to the right side of the case, you've got two screw down pump style pushers, and then you've got your screw down crown with the signed Tudor rose here filled with black lacquer, and I very much like that. And then moving to the very bottom, you've got your typical Tudor screw down case back, and this is going to be a reoccurring theme across Tudor and Rolex, this style of brushed stainless steel case back. And this entire package provides you with 200 meters of water resistance, so this is going to survive your daily jaunt at the office and bathtub. Coming back to the top, taking a look at that dial, I like everything about it. It's not too complicated. The indices and the hands are all clearly labeled, so quick acquisition of time is very easy to do. I will say the sapphire crystal is pretty reflective, so any time of day, you know, in the light that you're looking at it, there is going to be a lot of reflection off of your surroundings. Other than that, I think it's fine. I will say that the snowflake hour hand is the biggest downfall to the chronograph function here, because anytime during the hours of 2 to 4 o'clock, that hour hand is going to be in the way of your main minute subdial for the chronograph. I found this out while I was timing my officer candidates. I was timing their 1.5 mile run time, and while I was doing that, the hour hand was in the way of the subdial, and it was frustrating. And you know, I guess practically it is not ideal for a stopwatch function, so something to consider. And this is what the watch looks like at 3 o'clock trying to use the chronograph. As you can see, that big fat snowflake hour hand is just in the worst possible spot ever. And yes, any other chronograph, the hour hand is going to be in the way at around 3 o'clock, but it's just exacerbated here because of the snowflake style. Taking a closer look at the pushers, you do have to unscrew them to access them. And so if you're considering this watch based on water resistance and overall toughness, I think that's a wonderful feature to have. But when you're looking at it from the point of like having to use the stopwatch quickly to time specific events, it's sort of a pain in the ass because you have to allot around 10 seconds to unscrew both of these pushers. But other than that, they operate just fine. The column wheel provides this beautifully crisp snapping button right here, and then the vertical clutch allows a very flawless start-stop transition for the main second hand. And so just like any other chronograph, you're gonna hit the upper pusher to stop it, and then the bottom pusher to reset it. And again, because of that column wheel, every single time you push this upper pusher, it's going to be very crisp. And for the crown, it is a screw down crown, and just like with any other Tudor watch, it is solid. Well, maybe not any other Tudor, because I have only ever really experienced black bays, but with every other black bay, it's extremely solid, and that crown stem is just the beefiest thing ever. It is essentially a tree trunk. The threading is very smooth, very pleasant and easy to use, and while you're winding the mainspring or adjusting the time, everything feels very solid. Here is the bracelet. It's nothing special, nothing to write home about. For those of you in the watch community already, you've seen this a million times before with the faux rivets. You either love it or you hate it. I think it's great. The only issue that I have with this bracelet is not with the aesthetics, but rather the toughness of the steel. It is like buttery soft. Basically, you rub this against anything, it's gonna leave a mark. Here is the clasp. Again, nothing special, but I do like it. It has that touch of luxury, a very elegant look to it, and it snaps together very crisply and with a satisfying pop as well. You also have solid end links that are machined very well. And here's just a close-up look at it. Nothing crazy, pretty typical. Another thing you're going to hear a lot about the Black Bay is just how slab-sided the case is. You're going to hear, oh, it's slab-sided this and slab-sided that. And yeah, I don't know. You can figure out for yourself what the hell slab-sided is supposed to mean, but there you go. This is what it looks like on a side profile. For me, with the dimensions of my wrist, which is about 8 inches in girth, I think it's perfectly fine. I can imagine if you had a more slender wrist, yeah, it would look, a little bit too thick, a little bit too unwieldy, but in this case, I'm perfectly fine with it. One of the biggest criticisms that I heard about the Tudor Chronograph was that it was a watch that wasn't really sure how to identify itself. So, it's not really a chronograph, but it's not really a dive watch. It's some weird hybrid of the two. And the Black Bay is a diver's watch. Most of them have the dive style bezel, but this one does not. So you're getting a watch with the express purpose of timing things like on a racetrack, definitely not in the ocean, but you're getting in a case that's designed for a diver and these very robust screw down pushers and a very robust screw down crown that is designed for a diver. Frankly, in my opinion, those criticisms don't hold any weight, because as far as I'm concerned, any watch, regardless of what its purpose is for, can have qualities of a dive watch, and it will only make it better. Because having the capabilities of a dive watch and having the specifications of a dive watch just means that it can handle pretty much anything, whether it's above water or submerged. Sure, you're gonna lose some efficiency and speed. You're not gonna be able to spontaneously time things, but that is a sacrifice that I, myself personally, am perfectly fine with.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
So to sum up my thoughts on the chronograph, of course it's not a perfect watch. There are some things that could make it perfect, but as it stands, I had an absolute blast with it and I will continue to enjoy it. This will easily be a watch that will remain in my permanent collection. I do feel that the silver tone steel style of the watch makes it beautifully unique. And while I do consider it a luxury watch, that overall aesthetic makes it more of a rugged, tough style that I really do like. Tudor continues to impress me with their not as popular underdog watches, and I'm definitely going to be a Tudor fan probably for the rest of my life. Everything from their style to their price range to their street cred, all of it just really resonates with me and the kind of person that I am and the type of watches that I'm into. So anyways, that's about it for today's review. I hope you enjoyed it. I always have a blast making them. If you haven't subscribed or follow any of my other social media channels, make sure to do so. All of the links are in the description below. There's really no benefit other than to join my humble community, and every once in a while I like to do giveaways. And if not, I still appreciate you sticking around and watching the episode, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.